rated the top rated presentation at ResFest out of 50 vendors. So a lot of good material here, a lot of good educational aspects to this particular presentation. And I know that Dawn will ask everybody to mute themselves. If you wouldn't mind going ahead and muting yourself, that would be excellent. And if you have questions, I'm sure she'll give you some instructions about how to handle that. So having said that,
hi everybody.
And
sorry.
Dawn, you may want to go ahead. You may want to mute everybody. You can do that too on your end if you want.
Okay, that's fine. Actually, the way I like to do my presentations is I like it to be interactive. So
sure.
I do encourage people to ask questions as I'm going through. As long as it's not 50 people trying to talk all at once, I think it would be fine if you interrupt and you ask a question, because we can feed off of each other's questions and really help develop a dialogue here. So I hate giving these and speaking to what feels like an empty room with no feedback. So I really do like to hear those questions from you. And if there's something that you would like me to cover that you think I might be leaning towards, there is a chat feature in your GoToMeeting panel, and you can go ahead and just send me a question, and I'll try to answer your question during the presentation. So before I begin, I'll give you a little background about myself and about ASCENT processing. My name is Dawn Yaskolski, and I am Director of Sales for ASCENT. I have been in the vacation rental industry for probably close to 20 years now. I've been with ASCENT for 4.5 years, and prior to that, I was Director of Sales and Marketing for one of Barefoot's competitors in the vacation rental software industry. And I worked for them for 14 years. And prior to that, I was a rental manager. So hopefully that gives me a little credibility in all of your eyes to know that I've done what you're doing, and I've had the opportunity to see the vacation rental industry from a lot of different perspectives, from the technology side, from the banking side, and from your side as rental managers. So again, as I'm going through this, please ask me questions, and I would be happy to answer them. And I've probably run across some of the things that you're dealing with right now on a daily basis. So a little bit about ASCENT processing. We are a merchant service provider or a credit card processor, but we're very different because we only focus on the vacation rental industry. We don't do liquor stores and grocery stores and restaurants. We do have a few of those, but we usually get those in connection with one of our vacation rental clients. So with us only dealing with the vacation rental industry, we're highly specialized, which means we know how you operate. Everybody in our company, anyone you would speak to, knows vacation rentals in and out. That way we can help you the best that we can, and we're not trying to guess on how you run your business. So that makes us quite different than a lot of other processors out there. So today we're going to talk about navigating payment acceptance in the vacation rental industry. And we're going to give you some really good tips and tricks on preventing and winning chargebacks, because I know that's just the thorn in everybody's side in our industry, are those guests that think that they can get away with things just by calling their card company, and they saw an ant in the kitchen while they were there and they were absolutely distraught, and now they want all their money back. So we're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to prevent those and how to protect yourself. So today we're going to talk about a couple things in particular. Basically, everything is going to focus on how to increase your profits by reducing your losses. Now we're going to go over the top 5 chargeback reasons and how to effectively fight or prevent each one of those. We're also going to talk about insider tips on what to do and what not to do. We're going to talk about if your documentation, anything a guest would receive from you, has exactly what it takes to fight those chargebacks. We're going to talk about charging for damage, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. We're also going to talk about the 2 different SIT codes or standard industry codes that are available for vacation rental providers to process under, and the different chargeback protection each one of those gives you. We're also going to talk about debit card changes, and we're going to talk about how ASCENT can help you with everything that we've talked about above. So here are the top 5 chargeback reasons that we see when we help our clients in the vacation rental industry. So the first one is the cardholder does not recognize, and we're going to go into the detail of each one of these. We're going to talk about credit due not processed, not as described, services not rendered, and then technical chargebacks. Now, when a guest decides to issue a chargeback, the first thing that they do is they call their card company, and they say, I'm so-and-so, I stayed with XYZ Vacation Rentals, I was not happy for this reason, and this is why I think I should get my money back. Now, when they contact their the card company that issued them their credit card, Chase, MasterCard, or Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, the person taking that call is going to pick from a list of reason codes that they think this guest's reasoning behind their chargeback fits into. And this is a predefined list. Now, these 5 right here that I've shown you are the top 5 that we see come back. So, number 1, cardholder does not recognize the charge. So, you'd be surprised on how many we see from this. And a lot of this has to do with the way your processor has you set up. And the most common scenario we see is that your guest sees the name of your processor as the name of the charge on their credit card statement. And that should not be the case. It should be Sunset Vacation Rentals, Abaca Vacation Rentals, all of that. That should be the name that they see on their statement, the person that is actually charging them. So make sure your company name is listed as the merchant on the guest credit card statement, not the name of your credit card processor. ASCENT will always show your company name as the merchant, and ensure that the DBA or doing business that the guest recognizes is consistent on your website, on the receipts you give them, on the lease agreement that you send them. Make sure that it is the same company name and consistent on all of those documents. Now, another thing that we see is there are multiple guests paying on one reservation. So, there's a wedding, mom and dad, rented the house, but all these other people that are staying in the house are contributing towards the payment of that rental. Or there's a family reunion, or there's a group of friends getting together. And they're all paying a small portion directly to the management company for that rental. We recommend that each cardholder that is paying is required to physically sign that lease agreement or a receipt that is returned to the office. Even if one person signs the master lease, you create another document that says, I agree to my portion, blah, 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 blah. You have the right to charge my card for this amount on this reservation in this name with this confirmation number, da-da-da-da-da. Have that guest sign that document and return it back to you and keep it with that lease agreement. This is a known fraud alert. So here's a scenario we typically see. Reservation is made under the name of Mary Smith. Mary Smith signs the lease agreement but provides her husband, John Smith's credit card for payment. The fraudulent guests use this scheme quite often. So John Smith will call you back and claim he didn't stay and he didn't authorize Mary Smith to use his card. So the name on the card needs to match the reservation and the signature on file. We see this so often, and guests do this, and they know exactly what they're doing ahead of time. So for even though it's a husband and wife, and they say, I'm going to give you my wife's card, sorry. Then the reservation needs to be in your wife's name with your wife's card and your wife's signature. Does anybody have any questions on that? This is the #1 reason code, so this is really, really important. Number 2, credit not processed. Now, we all know that if there's a credit going back to the guest, we all try to get it back to them in a timely manner. Make sure you do those in a timely manner. If you state to the guest that we will refund your security deposit, or we're going to give you a cancellation refund within the next 2 weeks, make sure it's you do that within 2 weeks and not a month later. That's just common sense. This is another one that people don't know. Always refund to the exact same credit card that was initially charged. Do not refund by cash or check or to a different card if the initial charge was made by credit card. So we see where guests say, oh, I know that I charged it my credit card, but just send me a check. Or that credit card is closed or it's expired. Can you refund it to a different credit card? Don't ever do that. Have a company policy that states that you always refund back to the same card that they used. Even if the card's expired or the account is closed, the issuing bank that gave them that credit card can get the funds back to them. So they will cut them a paper check. They'll do whatever. They'll ACH the money directly into their checking account, but leave it up to the bank that issued them their credit card to get that money back to them. Because if you issue back to the same method of payment, now there's a paper trail showing that, yes, you did the refund and you refunded back to the original form of payment. Now, we always have those guests that said, okay, you refunded my card yesterday, I don't see it. I called my bank, they don't see it, I need this credit posted immediately. So by law, the card company that issued them their card technically has 30 days from the date that you issue that refund to post that credit back to that guest card. Normally, we typically see most banks get that credit issued within 10 to 14 days, but everybody's going to have those impatient guests that don't want to, don't want to wait, and they're calling you every day saying they haven't received their credit. So if there is that case, simply call your processor. If we're your processor, call us. We'll get on the phone with you to the guest's bank that issued them their card, and we'll say, listen, we've got XYZ Vacation Rentals on the line. They're the merchant on record. They issued a refund to this guest card on this day. The guest needs this credit posted immediately, and they'll expedite it for you. Number 3 we see is not as described. So the guest is expecting the picture up at the top. They walk in and the actual unit is the picture down below. Not to say that anybody on this call would ever do that, but unfortunately with the RBO and some other individual owners that do this, the vacation rental industry is kind of skittish and people don't always believe the pictures that they see online. So make sure your website and your brochure's description and photos of the home matches the actual home. And don't use, this is a representation of the type of unit that you will receive, unless all of your units are identical. They can get away with charging this back if it's not the exact unit that they booked online. Keep detailed records when a guest calls. So keep records of when the guest calls the office, their arrival and departure time, any maintenance or housekeeping appointments that you sent out there, guest complaints, the steps that were taken to address them, including the dates, the times, and everything. These will help, really, really help when you're fighting a chargeback, when a guest is claiming that something was wrong with the unit, you never did anything to rectify it. The more detail you can show the bank, the better off that you're going to be. Number 4 is services not rendered. Now, in a little bit, we're going to get into the 2 different SIC codes that are available for vacation rental companies to process under. And a SIC code basically tells the bank that's funding you what type of business that you are. And the 2 different SIC codes are the 6513 and 7011. And they offer different amounts of chargeback protection to you as the merchant. It costs a little bit different, one costs a little bit more than the other, and we'll get into the detail of those. But just know that if you choose, as the vacation rental company, to process under the 6513 industry code, and the guest does not show up or does not stay in the unit, just know that there is a small little crack in the system or a hole where the guest can call their card company, say services not rendered, pick that one reason code out of that list of reason codes to pick from, and all the card company is going to want to know from you as the vacation rental company is, did the guest stay or did the guest not stay? They don't care what the guest signed in their lease agreement or their confirmation. They don't care if the guest had trip cancellation insurance, if it was weather related and the guest couldn't get to the unit because the roads were blocked with snow or there was a hurricane. If you're set up under 6513 and the guest calls and picks the services not rendered and they never showed up at the unit or they never stepped foot in the unit or they stepped in and came back to the office and said, I'm not staying there, just know that you run the risk of losing that chargeback if you're set up under 6513. And we'll go into that a little further, and I can go into that in more detail with you one-on-one. Nothing on your credit card processing statement that you get from your processor is going to list 6513 or 7011. It would be very helpful if they did include that, but unfortunately none of the processors list the SIT code on the statement. If you want us to take a look at any of your statements, we can tell just by the coding or the wording on the statement what you're set up as, and we can advise you which code you're currently processing under with your current processor. Number 5 is technical chargebacks. These are errors that can occur somewhere within the batch settlement, or you miskeyed in the amount that you wanted to charge the guest. You meant to charge them $300 for their initial deposit, but instead you added an extra zero and you charged them $3,000 and you missed it. So we just recommend that you check your batch before it settles each night to catch incorrect transaction amounts and duplicate transactions. That's another one that we see. Somebody processes a transaction, somebody in the office didn't think they did it, so they did it again, so the guest sees 2 of the same transactions come through on their statement. So if you catch these things in your batch before your batch settles that night, you can weed out a lot of them before the guest even sees them. Here's a question that we get asked quite often when we're talking to prospective merchants is, do you charge for fighting a chargeback over and over again? Because I'm sure a lot of us have seen those chargebacks where the guest just will not accept the fact that they lost the chargeback, and they will reissue that chargeback over and over and over again. We've personally seen the most times a chargeback has gone back and forth between a vacation rental manager and a guest through our organization is 6 times, back and forth, and neither side will give up. So we do not charge for fighting that chargeback back and forth. One of our largest competitors charges $250 a pop after the second time. We'll fight it 8 times for you back and forth if that's what you decide that you want to do. And your processor should not charge you any additional fees for doing that. That's what you pay us to do. So if you want to charge it 6 times, we'll help you fight it 6 times. So here is some insider tips that we've created that most vacation rental managers have no idea. And these, and all of this right here I do have in a PDF format, so I'd be happy to share it with you after the presentation. And you'll also be able to go back and replay this webinar. So don't try to frantically try to write these down. After you get a chargeback, if the guest tells you that they do not wish to continue disputing the transaction, it's best to get their statement of non-dispute in writing and signed by the cardholder. It is not sufficient for the cardholder to just contact their issuer, which is their bank that gave them the credit card, and tell them verbally that they no longer want to dispute the transaction. Because the chargeback is already in process, you need to get a signed statement of non-dispute to provide with your rebuttal to prove that the cardholder no longer disputes the transactions. So don't just go by the cardholder saying, you know, all right, you're right, I'm not going to pursue this anymore, let's just drop it. You need to contact the card company that's handling the chargeback and have the guest sign this, statement of non-dispute. That is basically going to tell them it's null and void. If you receive a decline from the issuing bank when you process a transaction, do not attempt to process the same card again by reducing the amount or repeating the request. So if you try to send it through for $2,000, it gets declined. Don't try to send it through for $1,500, then $1,000, then $500 to see what you can get. This process is called fishing for authorizations. and it can be considered fraudulent activity. Even if you get an approval upon the subsequent event, attempts, so if you got declined for $2,000, yes, does somebody have a question?
No, sorry.
Oh. So if somebody gets a decline for $2,000 but gets an approval for $1,500, if you see a chargeback come through, you can lose that chargeback without the ability to fight it because you fished for those authorizations. So when you receive a notification of a chargeback, do not issue a refund. Even if you agree that the guest has the right to the refund and needs to be credited, the chargeback process has already debited your account for that amount and has credited your guest. So if you agree with the chargeback, you can do just two things. One, you do nothing because the money's already been taken out. Or two, you respond by checking a box on the form that's sent to you that says, please check here if the cardholder has a valid claim and you're willing to accept the chargeback. But don't just go ahead into your terminal and issue a credit because that money is already gone out of your checking account. So if you credit them back, you're going to be giving them back double the money. So now we're going to talk about, does your confirmation or your lease agreement meet all the requirements to effectively fight a chargeback? Now,
can I interrupt you for one moment? I'm sorry. Is this entire, is everything on your PowerPoint available in PDF?
Yes.
Is this whole thing available? Okay.
It is.
Right.
It's going to be available as a recording, so you can see the screens and you can hear my voice, and we also have it as a PDF, so you'll have access to both.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Just
You're
didn't
welcome.
want to take notes that I didn't have to.
No problem. There's a lot of information here. So when the guest issues a chargeback, and it goes to their issuing bank, and it goes to the person in the middle that decides who's right, who's wrong, normally it's going to be that Visa or MasterCard, they are going to ask for the documentation from you as the merchant to support this transaction or this chargeback. Now, one of the things they are going to ask you is anything that the guest signed, agreeing to your terms and conditions. And most of the time in the vacation rental industry, that's going to be your lease agreement that the guest signs. It's going to be the terms and conditions that they agree to online. It's going to be a confirmation that maybe has the terms and conditions in it. Anything that the guest agrees to or physically signs and returns to you is going to be required for you to show. Now, part of what ASCENT does as a service to our clients is during the application process, we ask you to send us that documentation that a guest would receive from you. And our chargeback department will be proactive, and we will go over that document for you, and we will look at it from a chargeback perspective. And we'll write up a full analysis for you on any changes, additions, or modifications that you need to make sure that document is as strong as it possibly can be prior to you getting that first chargeback. Now, there's lots and lots of things the bank will look for. I'm just going to go over the top three right here. So the first thing that the bank is going to look for is that the full amount of the stay is located within 1 inch of the signature line, and that it includes verbiage that says something like the cardholder agreement, I have read, understand, and agree to the above terms and policies. I agree to pay the following charges according to my credit card agreement, and then the full amount inclusive of all fees, and that needs to be within 1 inch of the cardholder's signature for the best protection. Now, we see in our industry, most of the time, the lease agreement or confirmation is multiple pages. The full amount of the stay is located on the top of page 1, but the guest signs the bottom of page 3. So what we are telling you to do here, or suggesting, is to reiterate, using the verbiage that we have right there, on the bottom of page 3, within 1 inch of that signature line of that guest, the total amount of that stay. And I'm not lying to you when I tell you that the bank will print it out, pull out a ruler, and physically measure 1 inch from that signature to that line. Now, for multiple page leases, have the cardholder initial each page and sign the last page. And always have the cardholder initial by the cancellation terms. It might seem redundant that you're having them initial all over this contract or lease agreement, but initialing next to the cancellation terms proves to the guest or to the bank, that they understood what your cancellation policy is. And again, there's many, many more things that the bank is going to look for, and your processor should offer to help you with this. A lot of times we have people that go to their processor and say, hey, listen, I need you to help me with this document, and the processor will just say you need to, you need to go to your attorney for this. And yes, your attorney will know the legalities of your contract, but they don't know the chargeback regulations specifically for the vacation rental industry, and they're not supposed to. So this is where our insider information and how we specialize in the vacation rental industry can really, really benefit you in winning these chargebacks. Charging for damage. So Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover all have regulations that specifically state that merchants cannot charge damage claims to credit cards. Everybody does. So even though MasterCard and Visa say, and Amex and Discover say you're not supposed to do it, a lot of vacation rental companies do it anyway. The good news is the guest, it's written into your contract or your lease agreement, so the guest thinks that you can do it. You have the right to charge their card. So you do have that going for you if you do decide to charge their card if there is damage. But just know that there are guests, especially lawyers, that know these regulations. And if they dispute the charge, the damage charge, with their card company that gave them their credit card, 99% of the time you will lose, even though you are in the right for charging their card. So the card companies are going to cite that they're not meant to be insurance. That's not what their services are meant to provide. So if you choose to charge a card for damage and the guest disputes the charge, drop it through the card companies and go after them a different way. Send them a certified letter, make it sound like it came from your attorney. You might have to go to small claims court or something like that, but just don't try to fight it through the card companies. We recommend, rather than using a credit card to handle these damage issues, we recommend using a damage waiver program. And most of the travel insurance companies, or all the travel insurance companies, do offer those. And those really seem to be becoming very popular because of the issue of you not supposed to charge the damage charges to the credit cards, If you do decide to do that, to use a credit card, here's a tip. Only choose to use a credit card for a damage deposit and only charge the card if there's damage, rather than running a sale and then running a return if there is not damage. And here's another insider tip. If there is damage and you choose to run it through on a credit card and you have the opportunity to indicate what you're charging them for, never use the word damage. Use the term excessive cleaning. Damage will run a red flag right away, but if you use the term excessive cleaning, sometimes that'll get you under the radar. So here we're going to circle back and we're going to talk about the two different SID codes, or standard industry codes, that a vacation rental company can process under. Now, each one of these has its own advantages and drawbacks. And so what we do is when we talk to our merchants, we help them decide what's more important to them, saving money on their credit card processing fees or having more chargeback protection. And we can help evaluate your level of risk that you're willing to take. So the first code that you can process under is 7011, and that's called Advanced Deposit Lodging. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's telling the banks that you are a lodging provider and you take advanced deposits on lodging that you will be providing in the future. It was the original lodging industry code. This is what most hotels operate under, or even are required to operate under today. It provides much stronger chargeback protection than 6513 because 6513 has that little loophole that I explained to you before with the services not rendered. 7011 does not have that loophole. So if a guest doesn't show up, they can't call their card company back and say services not rendered and then the card company say, did they stay or did they not stay? If you're coded as 7011, the card company is going to ask you, okay, let's see the contract you signed. Let's see the terms and conditions you agree to. It says right here that you have, you can't cancel within 30 days or you lose, XYZ. So if you as the vacation rental company choose to process under 7011, just know that those cracks are sealed up and now you're more protected. But there's always a catch. So the catch is, if you choose to use 7011, it's going to cost you about, on average, about 0.2% more than 6513. So what that translates into is, let's say that you look at your processing statement when you get it each month, and you figure out what your effective rate is. And the easiest way to determine what your effective rate is you take your total fees that you're being charged by your processor that month, and you divide that by your gross credit card transactions. That's going to give you a percentage. In the vacation rental industry, we see a lot of our clients getting somewhere between, 1.75 and, 2.2, somewhere within that range of what it costs you as a merchant to take credit cards that month. Just so if you factor in that 0.2% difference, that would look more like on a merchant processing under 6513, you might be at 1.95, but under 7011, you'd be 2.15. So it'd be that 0.2% difference. So, but the good news is you might win more chargebacks processing under 7011 than under 6513. So are you really saving under 6513 if you're losing those chargebacks? So we can help you determine which one of these is a better fit for you. So 6513 was originally, it's new in the credit card industry, and new meaning it's been around for less than 10 years. It came about 7-8 years ago, and it was originally intended for property management, which is long-term rentals, and real estate transactions. It was never meant for short-term or vacation rental transactions. But about 5 years ago, vacation rentals slid under the door of the HERE, and they've been successfully processing under 6513 for a while. So we can set you up under 6513 if you choose to use our services, and then we can proactively monitor the types of chargebacks that you get. And we can come to you when we're helping you with the chargeback, and we can say, okay, this is the reason that you're going to win or lose this chargeback. If you're losing it, we can tell you, listen, you've lost it because it was services not rendered, and you're set up under 6513. You probably would have won this chargeback if you were coded under 7011. And we give our clients the opportunity to switch from one code to another. And we do it for you on the backside, so there's no hassle and no new paperwork you need to fill out. It's we take care of it for you, and then every new reservation you receive from that point forward is processed under the new SIC code. And we can switch you back and forth between the two codes, depending on what year it is and how the chargebacks are coming through.
Dawn, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
This is Ginger, sorry. With the 6513, where you say that the signed documentation doesn't protect you, which we've figured out, does that your signed lease agreement help you a little bit more with 7011?
Oh, absolutely, because when a chargeback, take the identical chargeback, and the guest just never shows up, or the guest steps foot and cancels the day before, or something like that. If you have that same exact chargeback, and you have one vacation rental company that's under 7011 and one under 6513, and the guest claims that service is not rendered, when they go back to the company that's coded as 7011, they're going to ask for all of the documentation. If you're coded as 6513, they don't care about seeing your documentation. They're just going to say, did they stay or did they not stay?
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we've got some good news on debit cards, and most of you that have heard me speak have already heard me talk about this. About 2 years ago, the Durbin Amendment passed through Congress. And what that did was it forced all regulated banks in the United States, about 70% of our banks are regulated, to lower their debit card fees substantially. So what that meant is interchange rates on debit cards for you as merchants fell dramatically, over a full %. So what that means is now when you take a debit card as a method of payment, you're going to be paying a lot less in fees than you would if that same payment was given to you via a credit card. So just to give you an example, let's just say most debit cards are going to cost you around 1/4% to process, somewhere around that range. So if you take a $2,000 reservation or a $2,000 payment and you times that by 1/4%, to process that $2,000 payment as you, as the vacation rental company, that's going to cost you $5. So if you take that same $2,000 payment and you use just say a run-of-the-mill Visa rewards card that's, say, 2%, that same transaction is going to cost you as the merchant $40. So as you can see, there is tremendous amount of savings for you as merchants to get debit cards as payments from your guests in lieu of credit cards. Now, one of the things that the Durbin Amendment did open up, where in the past you were not allowed to do, is offering an incentive or showing a preference for a card type. In the past, you had to be completely neutral as to the type of credit card a guest is going to give you. But now you can offer incentives or show preferences. So we see our clients being very creative and coming up with all different types of incentive programs to get debit cards. We see everything from $50 off your reservation to a $25 gift certificate to the pizza place down the street, or a $25 gas card upon check-in, or something to get the guest to use their debit card instead of a credit card. Now, we also, this is not in my presentation, but I get asked about it quite often, is ACH or e-check, and what our thoughts are on that. We do offer ACH or e-check as a method of payment, but just know that ACH acceptance by merchants or by vacation rental companies has dramatically declined over the past 2 years. And it's really due to 2 factors. One being the risk involved in it. And you'd be surprised, most of our merchants are really surprised to find out that with an ACH or an e-check payment from a guest, by law, the guest has 60 days from the date of that payment to simply go into their bank, sign an affidavit that it was fraud, they didn't authorize it, they weren't happy with the goods or services, and their bank pulls the money back from you. And unlike the credit card industry, there's really nobody sitting in the middle saying, okay, you XYZ vacation rental company, tell me your side why you think you deserve this money, and guest, you tell me your side, and I'm going to decide who gets to keep the money. It's not like that with the banking industry. So their bank pulls the funds from you. You now have to go after that guest a different way to get that money. And that 60-day window is soon to be opening up to 90 days, we were informed. And this is all banks because it's controlled by the banking system. It's not individual banks. So the guest is going to have 90 days from the date of that ACH or e-check payment to dispute that charge. We see a lot of fraud happening with e-checks. Guests are targeting vacation rental companies that take e-checks within that 60-day window. They will come, stay with you. You'll never hear from them. They'll go home, and then 3 weeks later, you'll see a debit out of your account for that amount. And the guest went into their bank, said they weren't happy with the rental, and now they want their money back. And it's so much harder to fight it than going through the credit card industry. So another reason that ACH is not important ties back to the debit cards. So if you get that same payment from that guest that wants the money taken out of their checking account and wanted to use an e-check to do that, if you get it via debit card, everybody's got a debit card. I don't think you can get a checking account without them issuing you a debit card. But instead of getting that same payment via ACH, you get the guest to give you their debit card. Now you get chargeback protection, because even though it's coming out of their checking account, it's still going through the card industries. And now you get the same chargeback protection as a merchant that you would have if they used a regular credit card. You're funded quicker. You're funded with your credit card batch also. So with the debit card rates going down and the risk of e-checks going up, we've seen e-check acceptance by merchants really decline. So we get asked all the time, what's the best pricing program designed for vacation rental companies? So ASCENT does pricing called interchange pass-through pricing, which means it's truly transparent billing. So yes, our statement can be 8 pages long, but it is going to give you every single credit card type that you received that month, what the rate is that you paid for each one of those transactions, and every other charge is broken out for you. Some people don't like it. They say, I want to see it simpler, but you know what? Simple is not always better. We'd rather sit down with you and go through the statement and explain everything to you so you know that everything is truly transparent and you can identify everything from that point forward. Our clients automatically receive the interchange savings on every transaction, so including the debit card incentives that are available for the vacation rental industry. And our savings and the projections we give you are based upon the assumption that the card will not be swiped. Now, when you go to other processors, and this is a big bait and switch we see with a lot of local banks. So you're a vacation rental company or owner, you go to your local bank that you have your escrow or trust accounts through, and you say, listen, I've been banking with you for 15 years. Give me a good rate on my merchant services. They say, okay, we'll give you a great rate. We'll give you 1.78%. And you said, wonderful, that's awesome. I did good. I'm being rewarded as a loyal customer of my bank. Then you get your processing statement from your bank that next month, and you look at it and you say, whoa, this is not 1.78%. What happened here? So you call your bank, and they say, well, yeah, 1.78, but that's for your qualified transactions. And you said, well, what does qualified mean? And they say, well, when you swipe the card. And then, so you know that in our industry, 99% of the time you never see the card. It never passes through your hands. Those guests are probably paid in full 30 days prior to their check-in date. So just know that when you are looking at a processor, that anytime anybody tries to do a 3-tier, which is that qualified, mid-qualified, not qualified, or even try to present you a flat rate, you're not going to get the savings that you're entitled to. So the overall effective rate, I already explained to you how to calculate that, is much lower on our program of interchange pass-through than any other pricing models because you're only paying for the card types that you receive that pass through your organization. There are processors that will offer you a flat rate across the board for all of your credit cards. Well, the problem is when you do a flat rate, you have to make sure as a processor you're padding that flat rate enough to make sure that you make a profit. With interchange pass-through with us, there is no guesswork. So we don't have to pad it to make sure that we make a profit because interchange is interchange. So we don't have to do that in order to make sure. That way we can offer you the best savings that we can pass along to you. Another thing to be aware of with other processors, especially processors that do the 3-tier or the flat rate, most of those processors do not give you back your processing fees when you have a credit or a refund that goes back to a guest. ASCENT issues back anytime you have a cancellation or if you want to take a security deposit and refund it back to that card, anytime you credit back a guest card, we will give you your processing fees back on that money, where most processors don't do that. International surcharges. We've been asked a lot about this recently. International fees have been around for forever, and they've always been a part of interchange. So if you've been recently started seeing on your processing statements, your processor imposing an additional international service fee or international surcharges on top of what you're already paying as a flat rate, please know that is not industry-wide, and that is not something that all processors are doing, and that's something that we are not doing. So we hope if that's the case that you give us the opportunity to do an analysis for you. So how can ASCENT help you? This is just an overview of kind of what I went over today. We do interchange pass-through that saves over flat rates and local banks. We offer a free of charge, no obligation review of your pricing. All that we do is we ask you to send us 1 or 2 statements from your current processor. We take those exact transactions off those statements. We move them over into our spreadsheet. We do a side-by-side comparison for you. This is what you paid that month with your current processor. This is what that exact month would have been with us. That way you know we're talking real apples to apples, and we're not just giving you general numbers. We give you back your processing fees on your credits and refunds back to guests. We have no setup fees. We have no contract length requirements, and we have no cancellation fees. A lot of processors will have you sign a long 3-year deal that you have to pay to get out of. That's absolutely not the case with us. We earn your business, and we earn your business and keep your business by earning your business. That was kind of came out the wrong way. But we feel that we have to earn your business, and we have to continue to keep your business. And if we don't, there's nothing holding you to us. We have no additional international surcharges on top of what the card companies have already set forth and have put in place for umpteen years. We will help you win. We offer a no obligation evaluation of your policies, your procedures, and all the documentation that a guest would receive from you to ensure that you're as protected as you possibly can from chargebacks. And finally, just ASCENT. We are an experienced processing company that knows the vacation rental industry that will help to fight you keep. I can't talk anymore. I'm sorry. That will help you fight to keep your money. So does anybody have any questions? You guys were extremely quiet.
Mm-hmm. I have a question on debit card. In my system, it's my choice is cash, check, or credit card. So does the system recognize that it's a debit card, or do I need another choice that says debit card?
No, you can use credit card as the method of payment. With us, when we process that transaction, it automatically identifies it as a debit card, and you get the debit card rate for it without having to supply. You don't need to enter in a PIN number or anything like that to identify it as a debit. We know.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Well, if anybody wants any more specific information or to talk about any one of these topics one-on-one, all of my contact information is listed right there. We can set up a call anytime that you want, and I can also email you any documentation that you might need.
So I can email you for the PDF of this?
Yes. You can email me for the PDF of this, and then I can send it over to you. And then also on our ASCENT page on the Barefoot website, there should also be a link to the where you can request the recording of this webinar also.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Dawn. We really appreciate you putting all of this great information out there for Barefoot customers. So really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.